Yes.
Speaking of big whatevers that cause them to pay attention, we have a big whatever sort of unfolding in South Korea that may cause CIOs to become very well versed in South Korean politics, as it has at least the potential to really threaten some of the chip supply chains. I mean, this is something that's sort of near and dear to your heart. I mean, what's your take on all of that?
Sure. So being Korean, I noticed last week while everybody else was at Amazon reInvent that there was a military coup in South Korea. The president literally tried to take over with the military. The legislature immediately came back into session and said, no, you can't do that, unanimous vote, and everything kind of stood down. So from an IT perspective, you're like, okay, whatever, global politics, but how's that affect me? Like, the practical aspects are that there are a lot of Asian countries that are providing a lot of compute and storage and memory and capabilities that affect your supply chain. In Korea's case, Korea provides 60% of memory chips in the world. So obviously, anything that happens in Korea that stops that from happening or threatens that is going to be an issue. Fortunately, in this case, this is an issue where memory is considered a bipartisan issue in Korea, keeping those open. However, there is a government. There is separately has been a worker strike in Korea based on complaints to the government, and not having a government is worse in that regard because it is harder to fix up that strike. And this is going to be one of these little things where you should be aware there's an ongoing strike and a poorly functioning government right now that may come to loggerheads when it comes to supply chain for memory. And so that's bad enough for Korea. But I think it's also important to think about this from other countries as well. Like, obviously, we count on Taiwan for actually building AI chips. We count on several countries, other countries in Asia, of course, Japan, but also Malaysia, Singapore, a lot of other countries that are handling bits and pieces of our IT supply chain. And unfortunately, the politics that happen in those countries will affect our ability to actually be able to buy servers and buy cloud at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was actually shocked reading that Korea produced 60% of memory chips. I mean, I was aware of the dominance of Taiwan, concerned about that given the whole situation with China.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was sort of like an off radar thing for me. So, it just speaks to the fact if you're a CIO today, you need to, in case you didn't have enough to worry about, you need to be paying attention to some of the geopolitical issues. And I think it's also, we didn't bring this one up either, but there's another report out that Apple, as an example, is very actively looking at how they can move some of their production facilities out of China. They're right now looking mostly to India. But I think we're going to start seeing more of this, where historically we were in a time of stability that organizations were generally fine with this sort of heavy consolidation and concentration of specific factor or specific form factors in places like South Korea and Taiwan. I think there's going to be a much greater prevalence of people trying to diversify it, and it's going to complicate things. So,
Yeah, I remember seeing some the CIO stories back in the call it mid 2000s when the Russian oligarchs were taking over, and CIOs were literally pulling out servers in the middle of the night and leaving Moscow. And hopefully that won't be the case again, but you might have to take a page out of that old playbook in a country or two. Like, we're coming into some weird, wild times.